what happened, what would happen is, yeah, and here's the character creation part, which I guess now I kind of wish that, I made this a separate video. I ended up going with female because initially I thought I would just make a male and just make myself Falagar, but I did go with a female wizard. And yeah, I'm just kind of reading through it. I also talked about how, I found it kind of cool and neat that you just don't simply select male or female. There's actually something to read about each of the gender, each of the two genders. So, but yeah, I was saying what would happen in combat when combat would initiate. I was kind of doing nothing for like 10 seconds because I couldn't figure out how to start it, and it turned out I had to push spacebar, I think, to unpause it, because it would pause right at the beginning of combat. And so not only, and it would do that in real-time pause. So not only was there still that pausing thing, before combat, and I think at the start of each round it would do it, but then it was also turn-based mode, so it was kind of weird. I can't remember. I think I figured out how to turn that off, but I can't remember now if it was still doing it. I think I did figure it out. Yeah. Just briefly wanted to look at what the different races looked like. It was so long ago that I played this, 9-10 years ago, around when it first came out. So I don't remember anything, and I have no memory of how this started. So when I was going through all of this, it was a first time, almost like a first-time experience for me. I do remember some terminology and some of the regions that they were talking about, like Eora being the world this takes place in, Aedyr and things like that. But it's been so long that it was really just like playing it for the first time, and as I said, I never beat the game, so. So of course here you can tell I'm just reading through the different sub-races just to familiarize myself with it. And I was trying to find, or trying to see rather, if there was really a difference beyond just giving yourself some backstory and the different kind of look. With the different sub-races, but as you can see, they all have fighting spirit, and it all does the same thing. So, and reading through it, I couldn't find anything that would cater to a wizard class. So once again, I started, I recorded this November 10, yesterday, 2025, and right now it is 11, during the time of me doing this commentary. And also, forgive me, it's because I'm a bit more aware of what I'm doing. It feels a little awkward for me. I'm much more at ease, I guess, when I'm just doing commentary as I'm playing and saying things, as it's happening, in the moment when it's, with what I'm doing presently. And so it's just kind of weird for me to see myself doing this and commenting on, what I'm doing and what I'm seeing. So for some of you that, have, been watching me for a while, probably already know I favor the mage class. And that goes for, any kind of any kind of type of mage class, so like wizard, sorcerer, necromancer, even the ones that are like a subclass, or maybe I guess you could call it like a spin-off class, or is it really just like a subclass? Is it called subclass to a mage? So, something like a bard, which does magic through music and poetry, and necromancers, raising, who are adept at raising the dead and controlling the dead, and or like spell swords or battle mage, nightblades, which are like a cross class between like a warrior and a mage, or an assassin thief and a mage. Okay, I'm selecting my spells. I was looking for, something that would be a single target offensive spell, and one that does AoE, and one that was, like a buff toward me, and a protection kind of spell. And I found those. So Minolta's minor missile, was it? Yeah, that's kind of like in D&D with magic missile. Like, it's probably a magic missile equivalent. Yeah, I went with Spirit Shield. I think it was Ghost Blades that I went with. So, just so you know, the game might actually sound a bit lower, because I adjusted the volume of the video, see? So normally it would be like this, but I put it down a bit. This is probably the intended volume that I would like to have it for when I'm recording. Yeah, and Fleetfoot, so I can move across the battlefield quicker, not necessarily to engage in melee, but possibly to, get away from, from approaching enemies. But later you'll see that you don't really want to disengage if possible. I'm sorry about my throat. I wasn't having this issue when I was playing, but then again I was also drinking some coffee. But you don't want to move away from combat or retreat if you're already engaged in melee with an enemy. You're point blank to each other. because then they get something called an attack of opportunity. It's called something else here. But with an attack of opportunity, they basically get a strike on you for retreating or just moving away or around them when you're already in point blank, engaged in melee combat. Yeah, I was shocked to discover that might was a highly recommended attribute for a wizard, and it was looking like it affects the damage of spells. Let's see if I go back up to it. I ended up pumping my dex, and because I as much as possible like to be the first one, to attack or move or something. Very much like how I would do it in games like Bard's Tale or Might and Magic. I would give my magic users especially, but the thief also, but I would really try to see both damage and healing. Yeah, you see that with the might? If you go ahead and pause it and read that. It's kind of strange, but oh, okay, it contributes to 3% of the damage each point. But I would favor my mages getting having high dexterity, so they could move first. It is now. Yeah, it is 9:26 in the morning. My sleeping is still a little bit messed up. I came home yesterday around, when I mean came home, literally, walking through the door, around 11:40 to noon, somewhere around there, and I seem to be fine, not sleepy at all, but about 45 minutes. About an hour even, an hour later, I started getting tired and I went to sleep, and I didn't get up until it was around 8 or 9 at night, and I tried sleeping for a little bit, and I think I managed to sleep for a few more hours, but then just really wasn't able to get back to sleep, so I stayed awake until now. Even though I was lying down in bed until the sun came up, I couldn't get back to sleep again. So I have to reset everything. Yeah, I went with clergymen because I said I wasn't, as much as, I like role-playing and having a backstory that kind of makes sense for what I'm trying to do, the kind of characters I'm trying to create. I also look at what bonuses, it's giving me, and that one also kind of seemed to make the most sense, and giving myself +2 lore was something I also wanted. Being a wizard and having a clergyman, background, I made that work. It came into play in the story, so I think I brought up how, in conversation, I think her name was, I can't remember what her name was, but she was a fighter, Casca or something, not Casca, but it ended like Akasha or something like that, Makasha or something, but we started talking to each other, and I wanted to get to know her better. She brought up how she knew about my background of being a clergyman, and I just said that, and this was actually in the dialogue choices. So I love that. It seems like the dialogue choices are quite robust. And sometimes even I deviate a little bit with what they say. I do that a lot, or what you can say, like your response. I do that a lot in an Elder Scrolls game, like particularly Skyrim and Oblivion, because it's so vague with what you say. You would just say something like, I can't think of something, but it would just either be a single word up to maybe just a few short words, so I can kind of improv and expand on that, which I like doing. But here, I don't have to do it so much because, these are like full sentences. And as I said, they're quite robust. And basically, I said something like, I was a clergyman, but I don't follow that path anymore. And I started, to disagree with their ways and somewhat lost a bit of my faith, something like that. As I'm going through the portraits, I do say how all of them look quite nice. They're highly detailed and beautifully drawn, vibrant. Some of them are, different even. It looks like, I could be wrong, but maybe for some of them it's not by the same artist. It has like different style to them. But and some of them have, like that her with the horns and the flowers on her head. She looks almost photorealistic. But I couldn't find one that quite looked exactly the way I made her face. That's the photorealistic looking face. But there's a bunch of those. Having 99 faces to pick from. Yeah, I think I gave her more blonder hair. And I changed up her colors of her clothing. So again, this is the beta. You had to opt into it in Steam. You go into the game, and you go into properties and go to beta, and you could turn it on from there. When this eventually comes out of beta, I was pleased to discover that I don't have to start over. I can just continue with this character. So. And that's the other thing too. I was wondering, should I just restart this whole thing and do it all over? And I find that when I do that, I tend to try to recreate, as much as possible, everything that I did the first time around, and then it doesn't feel natural. It starts to kind of come off artificial, and I feel it. And if I could feel it, and as I'm narrating and speaking, you guys would be able to feel it as well. And I like things to be all natural, as you guys very well know. So I thought instead of starting it over, because of the mic, I thought I would just do this, what I'm doing now, and just comment on it and just be more careful next time. But as I said, it's because, I was gone for, a little over 40 days, in the Philippines. So I forgot to change it back, or not change it back, but select my mic again in the OBS when my Windows updated. yeah, I think I just kind of went with that because it matched the color of my book or my grimoire that I'm holding. It's like leather bound with the binding being red. I don't know if that changes later, but that's okay. And I went with Mystic.
Eh? Let's go.
Yes.
Finish them!
Yes. Oh?
And one of the names that, I always like using is Melora. But there are other names like Ariadne, Shada, Phaedriel,